Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's Thursday Thought. You know, the human mind often goes into places and times in the past, especially when prompted in some way by some kind of a sight, sound, or perhaps even a smell. And as one gets older, it seems that forays into the past become a little more frequent, and things that one normally would not think would be remembered come out of the cobwebs of the mind and into the light of day. It's really rather amazing the things that one thinks of, and with the advent of the internet, search engines, and YouTube, one can often connect a memory now with photos and written material or even YouTube videos having to do with the memory. Recently, I've been thinking about living at home as a teen. Now, that was some years ago. But even then, I was fascinated by railroads and often liked to go to the north side of town where the main Santa Fe, at that time it's now Burlington Northern, but the main Santa Fe main line and the yard were, and do some train watching even as a kid. That line was, and still is, the main line from Chicago to Los Angeles. It did, and it still does, carry dozens, upwards of 100 trains a day. There's no longer as a switching yard there as there was in those days. The yard, up until about 1990, served as a 24-hour switching yard, making up and breaking down trains that would peel off the main line in Harper and go to Anthony or Hutchinson and back. And there also are no more spur lines spinning off of Harper going to Anthony or Hutchinson or Kingman. Trains fly through there now, and they never stop anymore except to let other trains possibly pass them. The main line has been double-tracked, resulting even now in less congestion. Well, in those years, in the 1950s and 1960s, we had passenger service as well as the services of what we called a doodlebug, which would, I believe, come down from Wichita on the old Orient line. That line roughly paralleled highways 2 and 42 from Wichita down to Harper. It would spend some time in Harper and then go on, I believe, on down to Anthony and beyond. Now, if you're old enough, you've probably heard of the old days when trains would pick up and deliver various commodities from small towns in a sort of a milk run, they called it. Now, according to Wikipedia, one use of the term milk run was where it was used to describe a train that made frequent stops to pick up farmers' milk cans for shipment to local dairies for processing and for bottling. They would also pick up and deliver various kinds of freight as well as the occasional passenger. Well, the doodlebug was the ideal way to accomplish this in the years when it was done. Its schedule and run went through many local small communities and originated and ended, at least in our part of the world, in Wichita, where there were dairies, freight lines, and that kind of thing. Well, I recall on one occasion I was riding with a friend and his dad in their pickup truck. They were farmers. They had a small dairy. They stopped at the rail depot in Harper and they dropped off a couple of 5-gallon insulated cream cans filled with cream. The agent there at the depot ticketed the cans, accepted them, and moved them into the depot. The dad said, in response, I think, to my question, that the cans would be taken by train to Wichita to a dairy. They had sold that cream to the dairy. The passenger train would stop only if someone wanted to get on or off. It wasn't a main stop on the line. That person who wanted to get on or get off had to be ready to board or deboard quickly because the train barely came to a stop for even just a few seconds and then took off again. During that time, person and baggage had to be transferred quickly, and I'd seen that happen. Additionally, many of the passenger trains had what they called a railway post office car on the consist, a rolling postal sorting and mail facility. The post office car employees would sort mail while on the go and would drop off or pick up mail at many of the smaller towns. They did the drop off and pick up on the go, never stopping. Mail sacks would be kicked off of the car near the depot, and that mail would be picked up by means of and mail that would be picked up at that place would be picked up by means of a hook that was extended off of the side of the car, which then caught a bag of outgoing mail that had been attached to some kind of a standard near the track. Well, I recall watching that mail transfer more than once, marveling at how it was done. Moving at over 70 miles an hour, that main line at that time was good for 89 miles an hour. The hook would snag the bag and they'd pull it into the postal car right after they'd kick out the outgoing mail bag. A postal employee would then pick up the kicked out bag and take it then to the local post office for further processing. Well, I have other members of trains as well. We had a spur line adjacent to our property which terminated at a grain elevator which also abutted our property. In my childhood days, it was always a treat to watch the engines come up the spur line either to drop off a few cars or maybe pick up a few. They did a little switching there as well. We could stand at the fence about 25 feet from the track, and we often did, to watch. At least once, I recall a steam engine bringing cars for the elevator. Most of the time, however, it was either a diesel engine or sometimes the Doodlebug that came to service the elevator. Sometimes as a child, I would have a nightmare of a train engine coming off the track and coming after me. Those were some of the most terrifying of my nightmares, as I really felt completely helpless. However, it didn't deter me from train watching, and I enjoyed seeing them in action and still do. I hope you enjoyed going back in time with me for just a few minutes. May you and your day be blessed today.